Good day, everyone. Welcome to this learning session from Training Location. We're your authorized DiSC distributor for Wiley Publishing, as well as a channel partner with the Ken Blanchard Companies. My name is Bill Harshman, and I'll be your presenter today for this short, informative video. In today's DiSC lesson, we'll discuss responding to the C or conscientious style. We're kind of shifting from understanding the C style to more of a interaction and response approach. And I'll address today's topic from multiple perspectives. One, those who are not familiar with the DiSC technology or jargon. Two, those who are familiar with DiSC and have some understanding of each of the four styles. And three, those who not only know their DiSC, but have taken the assessment and know their own style and other styles quite well. So I'll review some C or conscientious specific information. Then I'll provide examples of responses to daily situations and daily interactions. I've always encouraged learners to maintain a couple important pieces of baseline knowledge. These pieces are critical to understanding DiSC. First are the cornerstone principles that we've discussed before. All DiSC styles are equally valuable. Everyone is a unique blend of all DiSC styles, and people tend toward one, or in some cases, two styles. And your unique style is also influenced by other factors, such as your life experiences, education, and maturity. The second is the basic DiSC model, which you see here. And it, again, is critical to understanding the styles. A person's DiSC style is decided by the intersection of two dimensions of observable behaviors, including body language, tone of voice, expression, word choice even. Now, the vertical dimension is known as pace or outward activity level, described as either fast-paced and outspoken or cautious and reflective. The horizontal dimension is known as your agreeableness quotient. This means that those who are less agreeable place a lower priority or concern for cooperation and social harmony. And we refer to them as questioning and skeptical. And they're also known as result focused. Those who are more agreeable and place a higher priority on cooperation and social harmony are referred to as accepting and warm, and that's on the right end of this dimension. And a general term for them might be people focused. Here's the key about this slide. It's the interaction between these two continua of pace and agreeableness, which forms the four quadrants or basic styles of the DiSC model, and by which you identify a person's DiSC style. However, what if you don't know about DiSC, let alone the style of the person to whom you're responding? This is the power of the DiSC. It begins with observable behavior. And remember, I said this lesson would be helpful to the non-DiSC types. So let's see how. Here's a scenario. Someone comes up to you with a reserved, cautious demeanor and asks if you have 7 minutes for a work-related question on the XYZ project due for completion on this coming Tuesday by 2 p.m. So you can clearly hear the specifics being echoed there. It becomes obvious to you that this person is seeking a clear, articulate response. They are detailed, precise, analytical, and systematic in the explanation of their need. They're not at all overly animated. They seem very focused on this task and getting it done right. They actually leave you feeling in awe of their complex problem-solving skills. Now, if your only observations about that person are that they seem cautious and reflective, pace, combined with a questioning and skeptical demeanor, you already have a lot of information about this individual, not even mentioning DiSC. Now, let me ask here, just intuitively, are you going to respond to that person in a lengthy, chatty, wandering manner? I don't think so, or I don't think you should. Even in this interaction, one can wisely assume that that other person is not looking to engage in chit chat or unnecessary social dialogue. If your goal is to have effective communication, you'll be better off to quote unquote align and reflect with their analytical, reserved, private behaviors than to ignore those behaviors. DiSC helps identify and validate that. As we continue to look at responding to a C, let's start with a definition of conscientious with which you're likely familiar, and it'll just help calibrate the reader and provide a common baseline of understanding as we proceed. Oxford defines conscientious as follows: governed by conscience, controlled by or done according to one's inner sense of what is right. There's that right word again. Principled, careful, and painstaking. Particular, meticulous, scrupulous. Excuse me. Now, DiSC will provide much more interpretation and meaning to this style label we call conscientious. Understanding more about the relationship with other styles will help our response lesson today. Now, with our focus on the C style, let's break down this pace and agreeableness interaction a bit more. We'll start with pace and see what the C style has in common with other styles. We see that C and S share a cautious and reflective pace on the lower end of that blue arrow scale. Now, still focusing on the C style, let's look at agreeableness. That's the horizontal red scale. We see that C and D are on the questioning and skeptical end of the agreeableness, aka result focused. Okay, now you might wonder, well, what about the diagonal pairings? For example, the CI relationship. Well, that's a good question. This is where we begin to see interaction between dissimilar styles that share neither pace nor agreeableness. So let's take a look. Again, with our focus on the C style, we know that a C comes from a cautious and reflective pace combined with a questioning and skeptical agreeableness. And again, I call them result focused. When the C needs to interact with an I, or the influence style, the first thing the C considers is that the I has a what? Faster and outspoken pace combined with an accepting and warm agreeableness, or people focus. Now, this knowledge is all the C needs to prepare for successful interaction. Granted, it will take a little more planning and effort entering the conversation with the other person's influence style in mind. I call this extra effort stretch. One style may have to stretch or flex a little to speak the language of another style, always considering the other's needs, preferences, and priorities. Let's now look at a very brief list of other descriptors to help you more easily and accurately respond to the C or conscientious style. Here's a high-level review of the conscientious style. We already know the two continua discussed earlier of observable behavior, which indicate a C, cautious and reflective, with questioning and skeptical. Let's look at more descriptors which help us understand better. A C is analytical, reserved, precise, private, and systematic. Here's a reminder from an actual DiSC profile report for a conscientious style. C's place a high priority on accuracy and are willing to do what it takes to get things right. They analyze carefully and make logical decisions based on objective facts. C's also prioritize maintaining stability and tend to be self-controlled and cautious. They prefer predictable settings with minimal chaos. C's welcome challenge, and they often question people's opinions if they're unconvinced and are willing to point out problems and flaws. Remember the C motto, do it right. Now, from a C perspective, let's look at how C's see all four styles and their respective motivators in parentheses underneath. A C sees the D or dominant as forceful, intense, demanding, and impulsive. And again, this is how C sees it. A different style would see a dominant differently. Second, a C sees the I's or influence as talkative, emotional, maybe even scattered and naive. A C sees S's or steady as uncritical, compliant, flexible, diplomatic. Now, C sees other C's as logical, systematic, reliable, analytical. Now, in all fairness, the best interaction occurs when each style reaches in toward the other style with acceptance, understanding, and a desire for mutual communication success. Let me take you through simple everyday exchanges. So, an employee walks up to a coworker who has a conscientious style, that coworker does, and asks that C if they'd like to go to lunch. Now, if your C invitee calls ahead to confirm the restaurant is open, checks the menu online ahead of time to estimate how much they can and will spend, possibly checks their cell phone for traffic updates to get there, and even checks the Yelp reviews to see others' opinions of the restaurant, you might well be dealing with a C or conscientious style. Now, the employee's response to the C, Well, thank you for confirming the restaurant hours and good on checking for traffic. If we can leave now, we can chat on the way to see what you saw on their menu that caught your attention. Remember, the C is result focused. They also like to maintain a sense of control and stability. For example, knowing where they're eating, knowing the traffic, and how much money they'll need before departing the office. And your inquiry into their menu acceptance acknowledges their value on reasoning and analysis. So don't let the simplicity of this scenario fool you. The same awareness applies to other types of communication: phone, text, email. Let's take a look. So, how do we respond to a C handshake? Sounds funny, but it happens all the time. Now, a C handshake might be firm and brief, and note that the C may cautiously hesitate to trust new or unfamiliar people until they have established their credibility. And a C handshake is usually formal. C styles have sparse eye contact, which occurs during a handshake, and possibly none when in an elevator with strangers. And they exhibit deliberate gestures and prefer distance between others when sitting. Now, a response to a C handshake: mirror the calm, patient, and formal gesture. Appreciate their accurate style and just provide them the opportunity to analyze options rationally and to separate emotion from fact. How about a voicemail? Every day, right? So here's the scenario. Contractor John Keating is our C style who leaves a formal, thoughtful, objective, and fact-based voicemail with an expectation or a request for action in his message. Listen as I read John's voicemail to Susan. Hello, Susan. This is John Keating. It's 10:15 a.m. on Tuesday the 7th. I'm calling regarding the patio deck project at your house on Willowcrest Way. We're exactly on track according to the project timeline. As planned, my crew is finishing up today, and I'll come by at 3 p.m. to inspect the work site. And I'm requesting your presence for a final inspection tomorrow, Wednesday the 8th at 9 a.m. I'll forward you a calendar invite as well. That meeting will begin at 9 a.m. It should take no more than 30 minutes. Thank you. Now, response to the C-style voicemail from John: a simple return message confirming the final inspection meeting tomorrow at 9 at the house, such as, "Hi, John, I received your message regarding the inspection. I'll see you at 9 a.m. tomorrow here at the house." Now, this kind of clear response versus no return message, which many people do, or a message says, "Hey, John, got your message. See you tomorrow." John's analytical, precise C style won't be able to confirm if you got the specific information he was messaging. Without that confirmation, don't be surprised if John feels the need to leave another message or messages until he gets that confirmation. Now, how about responding to an email? So follow along as I read the short email from Stanley Holcomb, our C style manager. Attention Planning Committee. The Planning Committee will be meeting on Wednesday, November 17th on the third floor in the smaller of the two conference rooms. Meeting will begin at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time and conclude at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Agenda: 1. Status of pending physical plant expansion. 2. Layout presentations for manufacturing. Slides to be sent to me by November 10th. And 3. Assignments, actions, and next steps. Regards, Mr. Stanley Holcomb, Operations Manager, Western Region. Now, what's the response? Simple. Be brief, confirming, fact-based, and accurate. Here's an example. This is to confirm my attendance at the Planning Committee meeting on Wednesday, November 17. I will arrive shortly before 9 a.m. PST and understand the meeting will conclude at 12:30 p.m. PST. My action items are as follows. I will be prepared to give the current status of the physical plant expansion, and I will send you my proposal presentation before November 10. Regards, Elizabeth Wilson. Now, as I've shared, there are different degrees of each style. That aspect or degree is called inclination, which varies between slight, moderate, or strong, and I use the word high for strong. It's basically how more high or less slight inclined a person is to naturally encompass the characteristics of their DiSC style. So this story or this section is entitled, "You Know Your C is Too High When." So a brief story. Back in medieval times, justice was swift and decisive, though not always just. And justice often involved execution, not just jail time. One of the tools they used in those days was called a guillotine, a large vertical chopping machine. Well, one day in the kingdom, 3 individuals were scheduled to be executed, including a priest, a doctor, and an engineer. Well, the priest was first to be placed on the intimidating device. The king gave the order, executioner pulled the rope, nothing happened. The device failed to operate. However, the simple folks in the village thought this must be divine intervention, and the king responded and ordered the priest to be set free and to go forth and spread his word. Well, the doctor was then positioned in the primitive machine. Once again, the guillotine failed to operate, and again the king sensed a higher power intervening and ordered the doctor released to go forth and heal the sick. Now, the last prisoner happens to be an engineer and also has a strong or a high C conscientious style. You know the type, they're analytical, result focused, and precise, all that with a do it right motto. Well, as scheduled, the engineer was brought forward, put into position while the crowd awaited the order from the king. At the last moment, the C style engineer, looking upward and examining the wooden bladed mechanical contraption, remarked, "Oh, wait, I think I see the problem." Well, by the way, now that you know a little bit more about identifying a C style, do you think you know any Cs in your world? I hope this overview has increased your awareness and knowledge and familiarity of the DiSC, and specifically the conscientious style. Whether your needs include onboarding, employee engagement, culture change, conflict management, coaching, team building, or simply communication, DiSC is the research-based, proven leading training solution. It's impacted more than 8 million learners in over 130,000 organizations and through 14 languages in over 70 countries. It's simple. DiSC provides a quick, intuitive way to understand yourself and others, and it delivers immediate and lasting impact on the performance of people and culture. And as always, the key to effectiveness through DiSC is understanding your and others' styles, then using that knowledge for improved interactions. And here's our contact information. Before you go, I'd like to extend a resource and a request. I'll be happy to send you a sample PDF of any of the DiSC profiles you see on our website, or if you'd like to discuss a complimentary live webinar introducing DiSC or one of the profiles to your team or organization, use the email shown, info@traininglocation.com. Be sure and check out our learning blog at the website and click on blogs. And before you close your screen, we always appreciate your like, your share, download, and of course, for continued learning, please subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss any new content. Thank you and goodbye till next time.